evening and welcome once again to Plain Talk. My name is Christopher Ram and thank you for joining me. You know, for a certain generation of Guyanese, albeit a diminishing one, the struggle for independence and freedom rang out and made us all very proud. You would think, as we hear of everyday problems of this country and that country, that maybe every country enjoys some freedom. After all, one of the first freedoms guaranteed to any peoples by the United Nations, by various international and regional conventions and covenants, is the right to self-determination. That is, to choose themselves as a country, to be recognized as a country, and to operate as a country. It will probably therefore sound very strange that there is a country with which Guyana is very familiar that has been denied the right to self-determination. For years, its peoples and its country have been occupied, tortured, killed. The numbers range from over 100,000 to much higher. And yet, that type of problem does not seem to make the news. It is therefore heartening that our own Prime Minister Moses Nagamutu, said sometime last year in a publication at a historic meeting in Westminster of the UK, "My message to you and your people is that freedom always triumphs. We look forward to the day when West Papua is able to exercise its right to self-determination as guaranteed by international law and is free to develop friendly and peaceful relations of all peoples and all countries." That day, sadly, is still some way off. But we'll talk about it to one of the leaders of that country. You've been introduced to him on television before, who was jailed for speaking up for his country and his people. His name is Mr. Benny Wanda, which you saw on the screen. Joining us on the program this evening is an attorney at law, human rights activist, substantial legal academic. She has written a very influential and substantial paper, West Papua and the Right to Self-Determination under international law. She's Guyanese Melinda Janki, and therefore let me now formally introduce both of you to my audience.
Thank you.
Mr. Wanda, you've been here, you were here approximately 6 months ago. What it is that attracts you to Guyana?
Thank you very much for, this is my fourth time, and why I always come into Guyana, because Guyana is a very important country and believe in justice and freedom and democracy. And first, secondly, is the Guyana is not only Guyanese connection with West Papua, it's a historical connection. Historical connection is very strong because when West Papua 1969 was the vote in United Nations and Guyana was supported West Papua independence. That's why it's very important to coming back to seeking support, people of Guyana, people of Guyana and the government and all the people of Guyana seeking the spirit. That's always, I believe. That's why I'm always coming to. At least I become my home in Guyana.
Would you be able, in your country, to have a television discussion like you're having here in West Papua?
We don't have any freedom at all speaking about. In fact, they're holding this flag, that Morning Star flag. You cannot holding. Even myself ended up 25 years in prison. So we don't have any freedom, even freedom for assembly.
And that's the flag.
That's the flag, yes. That's a Morning Star flag. That's very difficult holding. This is one of the examples that the two men called Philip Karma and...
you want to raise it a bit?
Yeah, Philip Karma and Yusuf Pakage was simply arrested just holding that Morning Star flag that we seen on the screen. And then jailed to 15 years and 10 years in prison. So this is the... now they're free because helped by Amnesty International, all the international solidarity, international lawyer for West Papua, and all the politicians around the world put pressure on the Indonesian government. Now they're free. Debate this kind of thing in West Papua is very difficult because we are not allowed to speak about our right to self-determination, about our freedom of speech, freedom of expression, totally banned.
Ms. Janki, you're an attorney at law. You excel in international law and human rights law internationally. How does what is taking place in West Papua fit in with human rights, fit in with issues of how countries, whether it's not perhaps, this is an attack on an entire people, isn't it?
It is.
No freedom of speech. He has a right to come here on television, and we in Guyana don't often recognize the value of that right. But he can't do it in his own country.
No. So, Chris, first of all, thank you very much for that kind
Always
introduction.
welcome, not to worry, not to worry.
And for having us back. I think your question goes to the absolute heart of the matter. People in West Papua really have no freedom. And not only do they have no freedom, but it's very hard for anybody outside of West Papua to understand because no journalists are allowed in. So there are no television cameras, there are no reporters. The story is only told when, for example, Benny is able to come and speak to people. When you read the quote from the Prime Minister, that was at a meeting in the Westminster Parliament with a very high-level dignitaries. So the Prime Minister of Tonga, representatives from the Pacific Islands, and so on. Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the opposition. But people only have access to this information now, really, because Benny escaped from prison and reached the United Kingdom, and the United Kingdom gave him asylum. And that's when people began to hear about what is going on in West Papua. And, you know, you described me as an international lawyer. When I first met Benny, I was shocked that all of us international lawyers in the room had never heard about what was going on in West Papua because there was a total lockdown of information. So these four are very, very important. The kind of presentation that you read out, quoting from the Prime Minister, absolutely critical for people to understand what the issues are.
You are part of that group of attorneys who support and promote the cause of West Papua. Can you go to West Papua? Can you visit that country? Can you declare? You have to go through. It's occupied by Indonesia.
So I would have to go through Indonesia, and I think Benny could probably answer that question better.
Yeah, for Melinda, I think because this her research about West Papua right to self-determination, all people of West Papua still printed at Indonesia, and if Melinda go, I don't think allow because Indonesia knows she's backing this, West Papua to the legal argument, and her research widely distribute everywhere, including Indonesia, including all the diplomat, and this is the one of the Indonesia cannot argue her research. So that's I always it's very difficult to get access. That's my opinion.
This is the what century we're in?
I know. Yeah.
But why aren't there more voices? Why are there bar associations across the world speaking on issues like these? Why aren't parliaments speaking on issues like these?
So those are excellent questions. And in fact, Chris, parliaments are beginning to speak. So there is something called the International Parliamentarians for West Papua that has branches in parliaments across the world. And MPs are pushing the agenda on West Papua to hold their governments to account and to say that this is a egregious violation of human rights. The violation of the right to self-determination, violation of the rights to life, violation of the rights to freedom from torture, and the rest of the world has to speak out when the Papuan people themselves are not able to. And it is happening in the parliaments, but it takes a long time. There are vested interests. And sometimes politicians, to be honest, can be a little bit lazy.
This has been going on now for decades. How far do you trace this occupation back to?
It's nearly 50 years, more than 50 years now, and
It's 1962. It
yeah,
had its origin.
1963 is Indonesia control as a beginning of illegal occupation. So since then we under the Indonesia until today. After the control, Indonesia be able to massacre people of West Papua. Amnesty estimate 100,000 and Human Rights Watch estimates 500,000. And we West Papua feel that it's more than that, but that's the figure. So this is I always call a secret genocide committed by Indonesia in this 21st century.
If it runs into what, six figures,
Once there is
that's genocide.
once there is an intention to wipe out a section of a population, then we have a very, very serious situation that the rest of the world needs to take note of and do something about. I mean, in the case of Guyana, it's very easy because our constitution requires us to do that. So Article 37 actually says the state supports the legitimate aspirations of other peoples for freedom and independence. So our constitution tells us we have to speak out, we have to take action, we have to talk to other countries and say, look, this must come to an end. The people of West Papua have a right to self-determination, and therefore we in Guyana must do what we can to ensure that there is a vote in West Papua where the people have a chance to choose independence.
We talk about the genocide, we talk about the United Nations Convention on Civil and Political Rights.
Mm-hmm.
You used the word just now, egregious, I thought. It's the first time I'm finding that egregious is not a sufficiently strong word to define something.
Yeah.
For us in this country, where we can go, we generally say many things. Often some people do abuse freedom of speech, but that's part of a right to freedom of speech. What's the day-to-day life in West Papua like for the ordinary persons in West Papua?
In West Papua, one example that when I come to Guyana, I never see any Guyanese military or police holding the gun on every street. I never seen them. In West Papua, every kilometer, every corner of the market, Indonesian military holding the gun. It's the middle of the war in West Papua. People are physically, mentally, physically they can able to walking on the market, but mentally they are intimidated, harassment, everyday life. We are still because we are colony, that's why we don't have any right to, even I have a beer or even have a drug law, you will be stigmatize you as a separatist, as a rebels, so even on the market when you go see the man with the beer, you will suspicious, you will be beating, or that's anything could happen. So that is the situation in West Papua, and every woman or children, they're always scared because every day is someone being killed. Every day someone on the street crash and run, and no one brought the justice. Every West Papuan being killed. Every West Papuan torture. In fact, that one thing that in Nabire 2014, five boys, young boys, were killed, a massacre. No one brought the justice. That is a situation in West Papua. Until today, we're still looking for the justice.
And these police soldiers, armed men, what's their nationality? What's their ethnicity? Are they West Papuans or what?
They mostly migrants. It's Indonesians, but there is some West Papuan recruited at the police or service for the country, which is Indonesia recruit them. But mainly the Indonesian army, Indonesian military from Java, from Kalimantan, from Celebes. So they are pouring to West Papua. You may know this East Timor. East Timor is nearly 13 years, now 14 years. After East Timor independent, those military serve in West Papua. Those generals serve in West Papua. Now they're in Indonesia. They create more violence because of they maintain the control and power. So West Papua is a more militarized zone in the Asia Pacific. So that is the situation in West Papua.
It's an occupied country. And Benny said something very interesting when he said that people will be categorized as wanting to break away, secessionist or... Yeah. But that's not the case.
But that's self-determination, isn't it?
It's this was a colony. And when you have a colony, this is not a separatist movement. You have a right to decolonization. So it's not a separatist movement. It's unfinished business. And for Guyana, it is unfinished business because in 1969, I'm going to give you the General Assembly voting record, Guyana was one of the few countries that said, we can't accept what's going on. Indonesia marched in, took over, and in 1969, they took 1,026 people, held them at gunpoint and said, declare that you want to be a part of Indonesia. End of the discussion. Presented that to the UN and said, the Papuan people want to be part of Indonesia. We're talking about less than 0.2% of the population. And Guyana was one of the states that objected.
Among how many?
Among about 70, hang on, 75, yeah, over 100 states. So Guyana was one of the very few states, along with, the newly independent countries like Ghana, like Trinidad and Tobago, like Zambia, like Gabon, like Barbados, Botswana, and so on. So a small core of states that said, no, this isn't right. For us, it really is unfinished business, and we would like to see the government of Guyana actually completing what we as a nation started, because for many of us...
And that's how long?
This is 1969. We're coming up now for 50 years.
50 years almost, yes.
Yeah, we're celebrating 50 years of independence, and the Papuans have nothing to celebrate other than 50 years of torture and killing.
And our constitution, in fact, imposes something of a duty.
It really does. It says the state supports the legitimate aspirations of other peoples for freedom and independence. We are talking about the legitimate aspiration. We're talking about a country that was a Dutch colony and went from being a Dutch colony to being invaded by another state, which was the Republic of Indonesia, when it should have just been given the chance to be independent.
Now, one assumes that Indonesia is not there for no obvious reason. What is that reason? Are there some resources that your country possesses that has drawn the jealousy and the greed and the avarice of Indonesia? What are some of the resources your country has?
Yeah, Indonesia is a three things. First, they interested our resources. Secondly, they look at us as a colony. Thirdly, they look at us we are different. So they treat us as we are second-class citizens, and that we are the subhuman. That's the main thing that I always say. Indonesia there to wipe out the population in West Papua, and so this a multinational company. Number of multinational companies have been operating in West Papua, destroying our forest, destroying our mountain, destroying our rivers. Because we West Papuan, indigenous West Papua, call forest is our supermarket, and rivers is our
forest is your supermarket.
Because in Europe or in anywhere, a civilized country, a supermarket is like, anything you need today, you go and buy, you have money. But for us indigenous people, forest is our supermarket, because today what we need, we just go collect and But now, is military are controlling our forest, our oil and gas, and we dying on top of our reason. That is why the illegal occupations, illegal occupier helping this multinational company to destroying our. So this is we also fighting about our climate, our forests and our mountains and our rivers, and same time they massacre our people. So this is that situation in West Papua.
I think also one of the things Benny and I have discussed is that the Papuans have no control over what happens with their resources, because Papua is such a rich territory, and there's no control over the oil and gas sector, for example. They're very powerful, and the Papuan peoples have no say in what happens.
And that's the oil company there is BP?
BP, Shell,
Rio Tinto.
And BP of the Gulf disaster.
BP of the Deepwater well explosion.
Yeah.
Because, of course, if you're going to take oil from below the seabed, it's an extremely dangerous process. And if you get a well blowout, you're going to wipe out hundreds of square miles. We have deep sea. We've just agreed to do deep sea oil production, and I don't think that people understand what the risks are to the marine environment, or the risks of something going wrong. And I know this is not the topic here, but the environmental impact assessment was pretty atrocious.
So this is partly about resources, control of resources. BP is extracting, and other companies as well, extracting your resources. Where's that money going?
This money go to Indonesia government, because those companies are biggest taxpayer for Indonesia, and those taxpayer money, they buy weapons and ammunition and tank, and then those money are using to buy those weapons, and then they intimidate my people, and they're killing my people. That is what's happening in West Papua.
So part of the impetus for this, when the New York Agreement was signed in 1962, and the United States put enormous pressure on the Netherlands to sign this agreement with the Republic of Indonesia, almost immediately afterwards, Indonesia signed deals with Henry Kissinger to give the Americans access to Papuan resources.
Sounds very, very eerie.
Yeah.
What kind of money is spent on education? So is there a university in West Papua that encourages the kind of academic pursuit and challenges of ideas?
This is one example that I want to give you. West Papua is a very richest island in the rest of Indonesia. Education, healthcare, very poor in because they systematically ignored, Indonesia government ignored. If West Papua well educated, then they will against the Indonesia. That's why they're trying to, just ignoring. Even there is a number of cholera in the highlands where I come from. A number of children are dying, about 100 children are dying. And this is because of health care is not taken care of by Indonesia. They just systematically ignored. And Indonesia always saying that we are developing West Papua, but development cannot bring the justice.
But in any case, that's paternalistic. You don't walk into somebody's place and say, I'm here to develop you.
No, that's what colonial powers do.
Yeah, they came to civilize us.
Yeah, they came to teach us how to do things. No, we don't do that anymore. So this is the problem. Indonesia is still doing it in West Papua. It's the forgotten colony.
Yes.
Everywhere else, we have gotten rid of these colonial shackles, not West Papua. And one of the things that has to happen is West Papua has to be put back on the list of colonized territories. And the Decolonization Committee of the United Nations has got to say, again, this is a colony, now we have to have a free vote. We have to have an internationally supervised vote so the Papuans can choose what they want, because they've never had the chance to choose. They've never had the option of being an independent territory.
In the days leading up to to Guyana's independence, part of its struggle, we used to hear about the Decolonization Committee of the United Nations.
Right.
Does that committee still function?
Yeah, and it's got 24 countries on it, including Indonesia.
As what?
As one of the members of the committee at the moment, because it's the membership changes.
So you have the cat watching the milk.
Yes.
Yes.
But there are 23 other countries.
No, but who put them there? How do they get there? What's the morality? How could this happen?
I think that's a question for states, and it leads on to the next question of where, for example, is Guyana when these votes are being taken?
Yeah.
Where is the rest of the Caribbean? Where is the rest of South America? In fact, the chair of the committee is Venezuela, and there are other South American countries on the Decolonization Committee. There are CARICOM countries on the Decolonization Committee. So what we would like to see is that they come together and they take a principled approach to this and insist that West Papua is put back on the list of colonies. It was taken off in 1963 because with the Indonesian invasion. How can you possibly say that an invasion is a process of decolonization?
I thought I read in the media a couple of days ago that former President Barack Obama was in Indonesia. He was. He spent, I think he spent 4 years. Now, I mean, look,
Yep.
I'm a great admirer of Obama, but I can't see how he cannot say something. He had 8 years as president of the United States of America. Was any appeal made to him?
Yes, there's people are write letter to him many times.
Sometimes politics really does amaze you, doesn't it?
Yep.
Now, I asked you the question, I didn't get the answer. Is there a university in West Papua?
Yes, we have university called Paradise University.
Paradise University.
Yes, that when the Dutch era built that university. We still have that university.
How free is that university?
It's a very good university, and there is many West Papuan study this university. Yes.
Can it discuss? Would you find a member of faculty writing in a newspaper in Indonesia critical of the Indonesian policy in West Papua?
This is one thing that all the academy, West Papua Academy, including Reverend Socrates Sofian Yoman, he's written 3 books, explain the situation, explain Indonesian ordinary people to understand about our root problem. And in fact that some of the code is from Melinda books. So this is that one. Right? So they seized by national code, Indonesia sees all the academic written about West Papua. So the academic or very difficult to write the books about history. Even write about our food, about about our culture, about our identity. Is always, including we cannot singing freedom song in West Papua. 1984 totally banned. You cannot sing song about West Papua struggle or freedom. So this is the situation in West Papua.
Melinda, I want to raise, to ask you 2 quotations you have here on page 29 of this very erudite publication. Kasisi argues that in some exceptional instances, the acquisition of authority over a territory in breach of self-determination, and that seems to fit in with what's happening here, can be substantially validated by the recognition or acquiescence of other member states of the international community. What is he saying here?
So he's...
And you cited, in fact, you referred to 2 examples he cited, Goa and West Papua.
Yeah.
Goa, the Portuguese colony in
Portuguese
India.
enclave, yeah.
Yes.
So for the viewers, I think it's important to understand that Antonio Kasesi was a tremendous international lawyer and highly respected. He's also what we call a black letter lawyer, which means that we look at what's happening and we say these are the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Now he runs into an enormous problem because there are two examples that go absolutely against the rules. One is Goa, where India basically marched in and said...
That was 62 as well?
That was, I can't remember when that was actually.
I was in high school at the time.
Okay, well there you go, you can remember.
Well, because it made the BBC, that was the big thing. If it makes BBC news, then it's new international news.
It's international, and it was completely illegal.
Yeah, it was Jawaharlal Nehru.
Yeah, so the idea was that they had gone in and they had, according to the Indian version of the story, taken back what was Indian territory. If you're going to do that, you really need to have a vote, and you ask the people, what do you want? So that's one exception. The other exception, of course, is West Papua. So you've got these 2 situations that you can't explain by the normal rules of international law. So this is why Kasesi is now struggling to find some way to justify it, because black letter international lawyers don't like things to be untidy.
Yes. You're right. You say he cites only 2 examples, Goa and West Papua. The case of Goa can be distinguished on the grounds that it was a colonial enclave which did not have a right to self-determination.
Mm-hmm.
That's your view, or that's Kasesi's view?
So that's Kasesi's view, that it was an enclave, and you could distinguish it, but I think even if you looked at the 2 situations that are the exceptions to this rule, and you arguably could say, well, this was an enclave, different rules might apply. you can't justify West Papua, on that argument. You've got to explain why it is that Indonesia got independence in 1949. West Papua continues as a non-self-governing territory, and then suddenly in 1963, Indonesia marches in with this fig leaf New York agreement, but Indonesia has an obligation to hold an act of self-determination in accordance with international standards. That didn't happen. So that obligation still continues. Indonesia still has an obligation to hold a referendum in West Papua. They never had a referendum. The problem, of course, and this is where we're saying that that's no longer relevant, you can't have a vote in an occupied country unless the occupying force is removed. So when where the meeting in Westminster last year that we mentioned, where you read from the Prime Minister's presentation, his speech that he sent, what people have called for is the immediate withdrawal of the Indonesian army from West Papua. When East Timor was under Indonesian occupation, those Indonesian forces didn't leave peacefully. They killed people and they destroyed property. So you have to avoid the same situation as far as possible. Indonesian army must come out and you put in a peacekeeping force. No one wants bloodshed. No one wants fighting and civil unrest. But people do want the chance to choose freedom, which is what we all want.
You also mentioned the question of the Covenant of the League of Nations, the forerunner of the United Nations, and the principles declared by the Court of International Law on the nature of the sacred trust.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can read it. Or
Yes,
the
please.
sacred trust, not merely a moral obligation, but a binding legal character. That's what this country, with Mr. Wanda, leads
Yes.
from exile.
There
Is-
is a sacred legal obligation to let the people of West Papua have their own self-government, self-determination, and if they want, independence.
We have this publication here, May 2017, New Internationalist. Is this on the web? It's available for free download.
Yeah, free download.
It's the lead article. It features West Papua with a mirage, an image
Yes.
of someone with the colors of your flag.
Right.
And let me say now, if viewers are wondering, this shirt I'm wearing tonight is a gift from Mr. Benny Wanda. I want to thank you very much, sir. Everybody tells me I look better and younger in it. So you've really helped me. Now, on a serious note, it does carry a question mark, but it says freedom in sight. How realistic is this concept of insight? Or is it to provoke the world's conscience? Because the next thing, the byline to that, and the strapline, is why the world's forgotten occupation needs you. What gives you hope? What makes you wake up every morning and think, you know what, it's worth it?
Yes, this is about the human sufferings. I cannot sleep when my mom or my auntie was being raped, or my brother was killed, and all the elder in the village, they can't sleep because when they woke up, military coming in and like intimidate. So that is one. Secondly, I want to see the people of West Papua enjoy the freedom the other people enjoy. Thirdly, I cannot sleep until my people are free. Then I will sleep. So you can see this article is about, it's very important story all inside there. People of West Papua hoping and crying for 50 years. So that is then, and internationally, the people are finding out about West Papua, and through the Facebook, through the website, and a lot of solidarity around the world are supporting, including diplomat, including government level. In fact, that I always come to Guyana. People of Guyana give me hope, and including the governments. So that keep me, move and keep, the hope is really high. So that's why the freedom will come in, and because I'm doing it, and we are now people of West Papua united under the United Liberation Movement, and all the leaders, people inside, outside, have become united. So that gives me hope that a freedom is coming.
Well, how long have you been associated with this movement?
I first met Benny in 2003, 4. 2005, there you go. At a meeting of the Bar Council in London, where I was asked to speak about Guyana and the issues that we have, and Benny was one of the other speakers.
And when you thought we had problems?
I thought we had problems, and then I realized that actually we don't really have anything comparable. And I was shocked by what I heard, and it moved me to talk to Benny afterwards and to begin this research and this work. And together we set up the International Lawyers for West Papua here in Georgetown in 2009, which now has members from all around the world. So, and I think that lawyers have a very important role to play. Not one lawyer, but lawyers everywhere, bar associations everywhere have a role to play. Parliamentarians everywhere have a role to play. We need to put pressure on governments to do what is right. Governments tend to do what is expedient. Politicians in particular like to do what is expedient, but that's not good enough. Sometimes we have to do what's right.
And so you really got into the project. You took on almost a crusading role, did you?
I started off to find out as close as I could get to the truth of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a lawyer, your first job is really to get the facts, to look at the law. And the more research I did, the more I became convinced that Benny and the Papuan people have a right to self-determination. And it's a fundamental right. But the publication stands on its own, and people can critique it. They can come back to me and say they disagree, and then we could have a discussion about it. But so far, it's there.
Indonesia continues to peddle its position that it was an act of free choice.
Yeah. So they may say that, but it is a completely untenable view. And the Indonesian report to the United Nations, so when I talk about the act of free choice in that paper,
Mm-hmm.
I quote from the Indonesian report. And it's the Indonesian report that says, the people are too primitive to decide.
Yes.
It's the Indonesian report that says, oh, you can't explain things to them. Oh, you don't understand. These people really can't make up their minds. And no, we don't do that. Well, that is wholly and completely unacceptable.
Do you share even guarded optimism that the people of Papua New Guinea or West Papua are seeing freedom in sight?
Chris, when people want freedom, they will get it. It may take a while, but it will happen. And the rest of the world, I think, is waking up to what is going on. And there will come a point when the international supervised vote will take place. And at that stage, the Papuans will decide, do we want to be part of Indonesia? Do we want to be independent? Do we want something else?
How do we specifically, we can always talk generalizations. How do we bring about this change that the people of West Papua have died for by the tens of thousands, possibly 100,000, and continue to die for?
I think everybody can do something. I think, for example, the people of Guyana, they can go on the internet, they can look at what is going on, and they can take the actions that the Papuan peoples are asking for. They can put pressure on this government to honor this, that we started, honor this resolution, and ensure that the people of Papua have a right of self-determination and that they get a chance to vote. They can put pressure on the government to support the international supervised vote. Guyana is in a very important position. We're part of South America, we're in the OS, we're part of CARICOM. CARICOM's headquarters are here. So Guyana has a very important role to play in different fora. And I'm hoping that Guyana will do that, actually. I mean, there are times when we are obsessed with our own problems, but now and then we have to stop fighting one another and actually reach out and help other people, because we are in a privileged position in comparison.
And if you were to be talking to Guyanese as you are now, what is the message you're trying to send them?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my message to the Guyanese people, because this is my fourth time, and the hope is here in this country, and because of historical connection, I hope that Guyanese people, whether you are ordinary person or politicians or lawyers or the young or new generation, I really need your voice, and because the public pressure is very important, and to the government can to support the West Papua right to self-determination. That's my message. I really need your support, and you are missing it. And in fact, that you are now representing people of West Papua here, so this is very important.
Is there a legal route to this?
Yes, the legal route.
We have a world court, we have the United Nations, you have Security Council, you have all these things, and then you have the reality of some of these countries.
Yes, because there is a difference between what the law says and what people can enforce. So the legal route is actually to ensure that the Papuans can exercise their right of self-determination, and that's why they're asking for an internationally supervised vote. They don't want the Indonesians to supervise the vote, because we know that's already been a disaster to allow Indonesia any say over the self-determination. So let it be internationally supervised, completely above board, international observers, international scrutineers, and agreed rules.
Which should be fairly simple and straightforward.
It's very straightforward. Conceptually, legally, it is very straightforward. The problem is political, not legal.
On a day-to-day basis, there is discrimination, racism, violence, poverty, crime. That's not a world we should be living in.
No, it's not. No.
You think of our great names, Mandela, Archbishop Tutu. One would have to put Barack Obama in that group with Nobel. We tend to forget that maybe he should give it back.
He should give it back. He promised to close down Guantanamo Bay and he didn't do it.
Well, he visited this country.
And what did he do for the Papuans?
Enjoyed a holiday.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, Melinda and Benny, if these great people can't do it, who can? Realistically, it's hard to say, oh, all of us, and we're talking. This is talk. You have Moses Nagamutu going to the Parliament in the UK.
He didn't actually go, so it was read out for him.
It was read out,
he wasn't able to go.
But in making this grand statement,
Yeah.
we have the Constitution.
Yeah.
And as Moses would tell you, he has come out of that struggle.
Yes.
Is it that we have this capacity not to be shocked anymore? That Nagamutu can talk about it, but it's talk, just old talk.
Well, I think we're hoping for a little bit more from governments around the world, that as they become more aware of what is happening, then they will act. And that we're certainly seeing that. So there were several states stood up in the United Nations last year and condemned what was going on and called on Indonesia to desist. So there is progress, but it's in answer to your question, governments have to do it. States have to vote at the UN General Assembly for an international supervised vote. The Papuans are not a state. They have no say. They are excluded from the formal processes. So those who are in those processes have to stand up with them, just as Guyana did in 1969. Guyana's got to do it again.
And as Guyana did, Mr. Wanda is doing what Jagan and Burnham used to do, go around looking for support in non-aligned countries.
Yep, and we have a super record on decolonization.
As good as any.
Yeah, Guyana has a very good record.
Other than, and you know, Melinda, we were talking earlier this evening about barrels and supporting people. How can one support in any tangible way? Forget the politics now. Support in a tangible way the people of West Papua.
I think Benny's really got to answer that. How could people
I'm putting it there.
Actually help? Yeah.
I think the Guyana is have member of the United Nations and moral obligation to speak out about people like me. I'm looking for justice, looking for freedom, and Guyana come out from the colonialism, imperialism, and that's own history, own experience. So we are still fighting. So I think if the governments and oppositions and the government could edit their voice, because we have 8 countries in the Pacific, small island country are speaking out about West Papua in the United Nations. So we really need Guyana could lead the CARICOM to help us to, for example, setting up a friend of West Papua in CARICOM, for example, and then this issue must lead to the United Nations. Because they have a voice, that's why I'm always confident to come to Guyana, to seeking support from ordinary people, politicians, and the parliamentarian and the government level. So people power can change to this.
Melinda, I come back to this. You've written an excellent paper, West Indian Law Journal, May 2010. Is there any forum where, and you've got good friends, I know, in the UK Parliament at the higher level as well. Is there not somewhere where this compelling case can be made by these not only persons like you who have this moral authority, but people who have political authority. We are probably on the verge of seeing a change of government, and you probably will get Mr. Corbyn, the Labour leader. What impact do you see that happening? And can we use that kind of thing? Can we strengthen this? All these efforts, pull them together. How can it be done?
Well, I think governments have got to do it, Chris, and you're absolutely right when you say if there's a change of government. You asked a very good question, what will happen? I don't know exactly. I don't know what the British government will do. We notice that when people are in opposition, they're a lot more vocal than when they get into power. But it does require political power to bring about this change. Legal authority, moral authority is not enough. It also requires political commitment.
Penny Day, the operator is signaling 1 minute. You have that minute.
Well, for me, it's a really honor and to be coming to this station, because this is only give me platform to explain and about my people's struggle and to the people of Guyana and across the Caribbean. So this is very honored to be here, and also, Guyana is my home, and I always come here to seeking support and people of Guyana. In fact, that Melinda and yourself here, and now officially you are like a voice of people of West Papua in Guyana, and Free West Papua, voice of Free West Papua. So if the people want to find out, I think, you are right person, and Melinda, to come and, find out more.
Well, thank you very much. I think the majority of Guyanese, when they know your story and when they relate it to what we ourselves had gone through, would be more than sympathetic. I want to thank you. I want to wish you well. I want to wish your people well. I want to thank Ms. Janki for her sterling effort in this matter. And I would like to thank the operator for that creative piece of work where we've got the West Papua flag as the background for this entire program. That was tremendous. Thank you so much. Operators and viewers, thank you, good night, and see you next week.